The torches burned low in the stone corridors of Castle Varhagi, their wavering flames barely touching the tapestries that lined the walls. Tapestries embroidered not with scenes of triumph or honor, but of storms, wolves, and omens. No visitor ever walked these halls willingly. No servant remained longer than necessity demanded. And no one, not even the bravest guard, lingered near the forbidden wing where the Lady of Varhagi conducted her rituals. Her name was Countess Ursika Darvari, a woman whispered about in frightened taverns and trembling servant quarters. Some said she bargained with night spirits. Others insisted she poisoned the wells of nearby villages to keep her lands unapproachable. But the most horrifying rumor, the one no one dared utter unless the night was thick and drink was strong, was that the Countess had found a way to stop time itself, and her method was drenched in blood. Winter arrived early that year. The forests surrounding Castle Varhagi froze like a sculpture, each tree blade-sharp with ice. Snow swallowed the sounds of life. Even wolves rarely ventured close. And yet, even in that dead season, girls began to vanish. They were always young, always beautiful, always from families who could not afford to ask questions. The first to disappear was Ilka, a shepherd's daughter who had ventured out to gather firewood. The villagers searched the hills in panic, but only found a broken branch and a single red ribbon half buried in snow. The second was Reza, a maid hired briefly at the castle. She had lasted 3 nights before emerging pale, trembling, begging her mother never to send her back. 2 days later, Reza too was gone, her bed empty, her footprints ending abruptly at the edge of the village fence. The third was Dora, the baker's niece. The fourth, Maritka. The fifth, Alida. The villagers knew only one place capable of swallowing girls without consequence. The castle. Countess Ursika was not old. In fact, she appeared ageless. Her skin pale and smooth, her hair a gleaming chestnut braid, her lips as red as the wine from her cellars. To the untrained eye, she could have been 20. In truth, she was near 40. But it was not enough. She wanted eternal youth, beauty untouched by time, unmarred by sleeplessness or sorrow. She believed it was her right as a noblewoman, granted by Providence, sustained by any means necessary. Her obsession began after the death of her husband, Lord Miklos Darvari. He had been cruel, quick-tempered, a man whose fists spoke louder than his words. Yet when he died of a fever, Ursika looked into the mirror and saw herself aging, lines forming at the edge of her eyes, shadows beneath them, a pallor that no powder could mask. In her grief and terror, she became desperate, and desperation led her into the arms of a village healer witch named Borbala, a woman with coal-black eyes and knowledge older than scripture. "You wish to preserve what nature will take," Borbala had murmured. "Then you must steal what nature gives to others." "What do you mean?" the Countess whispered. "Youth, life, blood." Those 3 words changed Ursika forever. The ritual chamber lay beneath the castle, a hidden room of carved stone, lit by candles and heavy with the scent of iron. A marble tub sat in the center, veined blue and white like frozen lightning. Borbala had prepared it, mixing crushed herbs into the water until the air stung with their bitterness. Then the girls began to arrive. Bound, trembling, terrified, the Countess would appear in a silk gown, her hair braided like a crown, her eyes hungry. She would touch their cheeks gently, as if they were porcelain dolls, and whisper, "Your life will serve a higher purpose." And then Borbala's knife would rise. The screams never left the chamber. The stones were too thick, the snow above too deep. After each ritual, the tub filled slowly, horrifyingly, with crimson warmth. Ursika would undress with reverence, step inside, and sink into the glowing liquid as though it were a pool of holy salvation. The warmth made her shudder. The steam kissed her skin. She pressed her fingertips to her arms, her neck, her face, and smiled as if she were bathing in sunlight. To her, this was not murder. It was renewal. Each ritual left her looking younger. Her skin brightened, tightened. Her cheeks flushed with unnatural vitality. Visitors who met her marveled at how time seemed to retreat from her. And so the killings continued. Among the castle's servants was a 17-year-old boy named János, newly orphaned and brought to the countess's estate by distant relatives. He was quiet, observant, and clever far beyond his years. The other servants avoided him, not out of malice, but because silence had become a survival skill in Castle Varhiji. One night, while carrying linens, János passed the forbidden wing and heard something that froze him mid-step. A muflid sobi. A plea. A girl's voice. He hid behind a pillar and watched as two guards dragged a barefoot girl down the corridor. Her hair was matted with snow, her dress torn. She met János's eyes briefly, silently begging for help before being pulled away. That was when he first understood the truth. And once a truth is known, it cannot be unseen. János began watching the patterns in the castle. The guards who stood outside the forbidden chamber at night. The servants who whispered of red-stained towels and discarded clothing. The cook who complained about preparing extra meals that never reached the dining hall. And the countess, who grew more radiant with each passing week. One afternoon, he caught a glimpse of her in the courtyard, the winter sun glinting off her skin like polished ivory. She looked younger than girls half her age. That was when fear turned into determination. He had to end it. But how does a servant destroy a noblewoman guarded by soldiers and feared by an entire region? He would soon find out. Her name was Lenka. She was the miller's daughter. Quiet, shy, gentle. János had admired her from afar before coming to the castle. She brought bread to the servants once a week, always smiling shyly at him. One night, János heard shouts from the bridge leading to the castle. When he rushed to the courtyard, he saw guards dragging Lenka through the snow, her hands bound, her dress torn from her struggle. No, János whispered. Not her. He knew what would happen before dawn. He had one night to save her. János waited until midnight, then slipped into the forbidden wing. The guards were stationed outside the ritual chamber. Both were half asleep, warming their hands by a brazier. János approached quietly, carrying a tray with wine cups, one of the few reasons a servant would be allowed there. For the countess, he murmured. The guards stepped aside. Inside, the chamber glowed with candlelight. The marble tub gleamed like a cold moon. And in the corner, bound to a pillar, was Lenka, her eyes red from crying, her lips trembling. János, she whispered. I'm getting you out, he assured her, cutting her ropes with a stolen kitchen blade. But before they could flee, a voice slid through the chamber like silk. Going somewhere? The countess emerged from the shadows, wearing a crimson gown that trailed behind her like liquid fire. Her eyes glinted with irritation and hunger. You, she said softly, stepping closer. I expected better from you, János. I thought you were smart enough to keep your head down. He stepped protectively in front of Lenka. You won't hurt her, he said. The countess laughed, a sound colder than ice. Oh, child, I have already chosen her. Her youth is perfect. Her blood is perfect. She is my renewal. János raised the blade, though his hand trembled. You can kill me, the countess said, approaching fearlessly. But then my guards will kill her, and the ritual will continue without pause. She was right, unless he attacked her another way. 7. The Witch's Secret. János had heard whispers among the servants about Borbula, the witch who aided the countess. They said she had grown tired of Ursika's arrogance, that the countess blamed her for every minor flaw, every ritual delay, every imperfection. They said the witch had kept a secret, a weakness. János reached into his coat and pulled out a small leather flask he had stolen earlier that day from Borbula's hut near the woods. The flask contained a dark herbal mixture, poison, not for killing, but for breaking spells. When the countess lunged forward, János threw the liquid directly onto her face. She screamed. The candles flickered. The chamber shook. Her skin, once flawless, began to ripple, then crack like porcelain. What have you done? She shrieked, stumbling backward. János grabbed Lenka's hand. Run! But before they could escape, the countess threw herself at the marble tub, plunging her arms into the blood as if trying to absorb its power. For a moment, she froze. Then she laughed. The blood in the tub began to churn like a living thing. "You cannot stop me," she screamed. "I am eternal." But the spell was broken. The blood darkened, thickened, then turned black as tar. A sound, like 1,000 whispers, rose from the tub, echoing off the walls. Something ancient had been disturbed. The tub cracked down the middle, and the Countess screamed one last time before collapsing into the blackness. Silence fell. The candles extinguished, and the ritual chamber became still forever. 8. The end of Castle Varhegi. By dawn, the castle guards fled. The servants raced down the mountain, telling anyone who would listen about the horrors they had witnessed. When the villagers stormed the castle, they found the ritual chamber abandoned, the marble tub shattered, and the once beautiful countess lying lifeless beside it. Her youth gone, her body aged into a withered husk of someone who had stolen too much from the world. Janos and Lenka survived. They left the region together, never speaking again of the horrors beneath Castle Varhegi. As for Borbala, the witch, she vanished the same night, leaving behind an empty hut and a single carved figurine shaped like a screaming face. In the years that followed, Castle Varhegi was abandoned, consumed by vines and winter storms. Travelers claimed they sometimes heard faint sobs drifting from its walls. Others swore they saw a pale figure near the broken tower, her hair dripping as though she'd just risen from a bath. But no one went to confirm. Some stories should remain untouched, and some evils, no matter how beautiful, must stay buried.